Welcome to the first episode of the Recovery Roundup. I'm Cari, Director of Business Development here at Calvary Healing Center. Today, I'm joined by our first guest, Ramsen Kasha, who is our CEO. And we wanted to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about what's going on during these uncertain times, specifically how we can stay connected to one another during this pandemic. So thank you, Ramsen, for joining and being the first guest.
Thank you for having me, Cari. I'm really happy we can connect virtually, at least, with others out there. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'll just jump right into it. We've heard a lot about the psychological impact that this pandemic is having on folks. How is it affecting those specifically struggling with addiction right now?
Well, it's kind of like a double whammy, really, in many ways. Addiction by itself is a disease that thrives off of secrecy and isolation. And what we tell people, the way to break through that, part of the spiritual solution, so to speak, is to actually connect. And we're in a time where people are being told you have to socially distance, you have to isolate. And that makes it very difficult to do some of those things. The very thing we're being asked to do can get in the way of helping people address the disease of addiction. And the other thing is consequences. Consequences are hidden better. A lot of times people who seek treatment, they may know they would benefit from treatment, but they're not looking on their own. And what ends up leading them to care is family, work, or school or something. There are consequences outside of their home that start being more and more apparent. And with everyone distancing and staying at home, it's harder to see those consequences. Day blends into afternoon, into evening. Boredom is common. These are all triggers. So it's taken quite a toll on people who struggle with this disease.
Absolutely. What are we doing at Calvary really every day since the beginning and continually moving forward to ensure the safety of staff and patients who are looking for help right now?
Well, it's again, although we've talked about isolating and flattening the curve and all that stuff, the fact is addiction's not going to wait for that. So we have to be ready. We have to care for people when they need the care, when they reach out for the care. We're very fortunate to have an incredible team here, coining the phrase healthcare heroes, right? Because that's what they are. They're really kind of putting all these concerns and fears that we all really have right now to the side and coming in simply to care for others who are entrusting their lives to us. So it's our responsibility, not just to our patients, but to our staff, to do everything we can to keep them as safe as possible. It starts out with screening before anybody enters our building. From staff to visitors to patients, we do a standard screening that checks on things like temperature and other symptoms that could possibly indicate that a person may have the coronavirus, at which point we would not allow them in. We would have them go get further screening elsewhere. The other thing is visitation. And this was really a hard decision for us because visitation, meeting with your family members, meeting with your loved ones while you're in residential care is such a crucial part of recovery. It's such a crucial part of planning your continuing care. And we just couldn't continue doing it because, you'd have 20 to 30 plus people coming in at any given time. You can't really identify who may be symptomatic, who may not be. So we had to limit exposure to our staff and patients. And so what we've done is we stopped visitation right away. And what we did to replace it, to a degree at least, we increased phone time so people were able to stay engaged with their loved ones. And we added video chatting, whether it's through FaceTime or any other kind of app. And the way we had to do it was we had to do it in such a way to be very protective of privacy. So we had people sign up for time slots, and we would go into different rooms where there was no patient identifying information anywhere, and it would be a one-to-one with a staff member standing by, obviously, but it would be some ability to kind of connect as we are right now, virtually, not in face-to-face. We worked really hard with the local community to try to get more and more masks and other personal protective equipment. We were able to supply, we have enough masks now for our staff if they desire, and our patients as well. And so we're encouraging staff to wear masks when they're in the patient unit areas. We started using Impale, which is a higher level of cleaning solution. Not to get too in-depth with it because I wouldn't know as much, but it is supposed to be very, very effective with different viruses, including coronavirus, and it's a once-a-month solution that we've used now here. And the other thing is we've had to kind of push ourselves to really embrace technology, not just for doing things like this, but we've got very active intensive outpatient group. We have a very active family program, and we had to move them virtually, and now they are all running on a virtual model much like this, because we need to continue providing care to our patients long after they've left our residential care, but we had to do it in a way that was going to be safe for them.
Absolutely. A lot going on, lots of changes. People in recovery especially, I think, are doing, trying everything they can to stay connected, and maybe finding it more challenging right now to feel connected to a community. What are some tips that you would have to those who may find themselves in that position, feeling like this is a more challenging time?
Yeah, you're exactly right. This is a more challenging time, and I think it's important that we keep in mind that regardless of the challenges, we need to stay connected. We have to connect with others. Human beings in general, I think, crave connection, and you talk about recovery from this disease, it just highlights that need for connection even more. So, some of the things are things that I've kind of talked about in variations of it. Virtual IOP is one option. To continue a person's care after they're done with the residential component, because that's really oftentimes a trigger. People will participate in the residential program for 20 to 30 days and feel comfortable with things, and they feel like they got it, right? And they'll leave not realizing that it's easier to kind of have your recovery plan in place when you're in a setting where you've got therapists and other recovery-minded people around you, but you go back home to your everyday environment and everyday life, and we can fall back to our old routines. So we don't want people to stop attending care just because they're not in this level anymore. So IOP virtually is a huge part of it. Virtual family program is something I mentioned before. It's crucial because the other part of it is a lot of times family members will send us their loved one who's struggling with the disease, and they're desperate. They want that person to be well, but at the same time, the mentality may be fix this person and everything settles down here. It's like, well, it's not quite like that, because this disease is a family disease. Yep. Everyone has their part to play in recovery as well. Yes, the addict themselves has a lot of work to do, but the family members do as well. And so having family programming, or at least some way to connect weekly for the family members, is crucial. 12-step meetings all over the world have gone virtual too. There's a number of them utilizing, again, things like Zoom to have meetings continue and have the connection continue. It's not what people would prefer maybe, but in a time like this, when you have to be safe but you still have to connect, it's really trying to get very creative with our technology.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You touched on the family dynamic and how important that is. If a family member, friends suspect one of their loved ones is struggling right now, any advice, anything that they can do in an effort to reach out? Anything there?
Sure. It's difficult enough for family members a lot of times to set healthy boundaries and avoid enabling and all those things that we have to do to really identify what's truly there. Is this person just drinking from time to time, or is there something more underneath it? And here we are in a time where isolation is not just easier, but actually recommended for our health. It's making it harder to gauge where those boundaries should be. So the first thing I would always say is connect with your loved one. Stay connected. If you can't do it face-to-face, do it virtually, do it by phone, do it consistently enough, and consistently enough where you can kind of get a sense of who they are and their standard, behaviors and habits and the such. As soon as you see any change, whether it's to their behavior or to their mood or anything, call it out. Call it out right away. I think a lot of times family members get too embarrassed or scared or a lot of other really difficult emotions for us to process that keeps us from actually challenging, hey, this is the behavior I'm seeing, and I'm kind of a little nervous about it, or I'm worried about you. And their initial response they're probably going to get is you're overreacting, but to be persistent and to continue expressing concern and connecting with other loved ones. If they see the same thing, are they calling it out? So there's a consistent message going out to their loved one who's struggling. The other part is, don't just wait and talk to each other. I mentioned family programs. Al-Anon is virtual as well. Connect outside. If you're concerned, if you have a suspicion that it may be substance-related issue that your loved one is struggling with, you can reach out to your family, or you can always go and ask questions. It doesn't hurt to ask questions at a virtual Al-Anon meeting or a virtual family program to really kind of get a sense of what are the things I need to look out for. I'm wary sometimes to talk about specific, signs and symptoms, only because the signs can be all over the place. It could be too tired, not tired enough, up all day, sleeping all day. It really is a change in your loved one's behavior that's important. If you see a significant shift, figure out what's going on.
Yeah, so important right now, and lots of great takeaways and tips, and hopefully meaningful for our community specifically here at Calvary today and as we move forward in these uncertain times. So I wanted to thank you, Ramsen, for taking a few minutes this afternoon and talking. We look forward to meeting again on the next Recovery Roundup. So thanks. See you soon.